Hi everyone and welcome to our Narrato session about connecting the ASP.NET Webhook package to a automation service. I'm Jan van Utrecht and I'm going to tell you more about this subject. So ASP.NET Webhooks, what is it? It is a pattern to connect to web services. Generally in a webhook you have a trigger, so one service has a action defined as a trigger, and on the other side you have the action. That means that the other service will interpret this communication and do something with it. Also, common in such pattern is a retry policy, so that if the first communication between the two services fails, that you have that it tries within 1 minute. If that again fails, then it delays again and retries in 4 minutes. Also, because of security reasons, there will be a secret shared between the two services so that they both know that it's from the correct API. So I talked about the automation services a few times. Why is this important in this webhook story? These services connect them and automate your daily tasks. Very known ones are IFTTT and Zapier. Some examples of triggers that they use is, for example, for GitHub, when you have a comment or a mention or a pull request that is defined then as a trigger, and that on the other side you have an action, like in the new Slack communication tool, that you have a new message in the channel. So now ASP.NET Webhooks, they have on the one side receivers, so that's the action side, where communication comes in. For example, very known ones as receivers are Slack. You can do something with GitHub, MailChimp, also some services within Azure also support this receiver package. You have two types of the receiving side. You have an instant, so a message comes in, is instantly interpreted and done. And also there's another option called queuing. So there is an Azure queue where all this communication is queued, and then the receiver picks it up when he's ready. So that's basically when you have a lot of messages coming in, you might want to queue them to not lose this critical data. On the other side, when you want to send something, this package offers you a sender. A sender has typically some subscriptions, so it keeps track of people who want to send some data and keeps a list of each notification which subscriber, so the other end, wants to know about this action, this notification. Also, like we mentioned before, the retry policy of ASP.NET Webhooks package is failure, retry within 1 minute, failure, retry within 4 minutes. So, an example of a receiver is Slack. So what I will show you now in a demo is that within Slack we will type a command. In this case I took the example of an 8-ball where you shake it, you ask a question, and then it answers you with like yes, no, maybe. So if we first start within Slack with saying, okay, I want to send something to the 8-ball, some code will be triggered within our API, where we then send back a random message. So within Slack you will see the 8-ball wizard answering with a certain answer. This receiver is a Slack receiver, so it's a tight communication where you can, as I mentioned before, you come from Slack to your API and back, whereas you will see the next one is a more generic one where it's just loosely coupled from A to B, some JSON communication. So now I will show you how this works to show that, that it really works. Let's go to Slack. In Slack I have a command ready. I will copy this and paste this. And as you can see, the API returns with a certain reply. Let me show you within Visual Studio how this works. So within Visual Studio, I have a standard web API project. I include the NuGet package called receiver Slack. The first thing that I then have to do is use a token. In this case for Slack, I have a token which I can then use to go to my automation service where I can register this receiver so that they both know that they are talking to each other and that is allowed to talk to each other. The next thing is that when I start up, I want to hook up this handler, this Slack handler. That means that I have to put attribute routing on, which is by default for new web API projects. Then initiate this webhook Slack handler, and then I have to create a class for, in this case, Slack, where I say what has to be done when a message comes in. Next up, this data is sent back as a response. So that is one example of a tight integration. The other one we'll see next. First, let's go to what I have just shown you. For each receiver in ASP.NET Webhooks, you have a web API project. You have a NuGet package specific for that receiver. You have to remember to put attribute routing on and to use the config to initialize your receiver. Within Slack, you have to hook this up. You will have a secret which you can use in the hookup, so in the integration part in Slack. And then you have, of course, your code where you want to do something with this message. An example of another receiver which is broadly used for automation services is the generic JSON receiver. In this case, I used IFTTT, so if this then that, where within Trello, I create a card, because in IFTTT I created where there it's called a recipe, where I say, okay, if something comes from Trello, then send it to this URL. This URL is, of course, our API, where we'll do something with that call. For now, for demo purposes, I just logged this entry to show that it works and that you can, from there on, do within your own API what you want with it. So let me show you that it works. First, within Trello, I will create a card. Woohoo, live demo. I will add it to this list in Trello, and after a while, we will see that this comes into our log file from our Azure service. So as you can see here, the logging entry was entered where the IFTTT call passed by. So within our IFTTT handler, we can, in this case I just logged the entry, but of course we can do here with the data what we want. Another thing that I want to mention is just a wrap-up. What we just did was, again, a web API project where we used another NuGet package for the generic receiver. In the web API config class, we registered the generic JSON webhook receiver, and that secret was again logged within or entered within IFTTT in this case. So what we just did was receive data from these automation services. What I want to do now is send data to these services. You could ask, okay, why aren't you using the ASP.NET Webhooks sender? Because it is just too much overhead for this simple thing you want to do. You just want, when you want to send something to Zapier, it has to be simple. You don't want a subscription list, a notification list, etc. This is just from your controller within your API, sending something to Zapier in this case. So Like I put in this slide, we will have some code which will send an HTTP call to Zapier. There is a registration to say, okay, when something comes to this URL, we will send the data, the communication, to Trello in this case. Within this configuration, you can specify a bit what has to go to in this case, the Trello card. It interprets a test call, and then you can use all the JSON properties from that call to map it to a Trello card. Let me first also let you know how you do this within Zapier. Within Zapier, you will create what's called there a zap, so where the counterpart in IFTTT is a recipe. You will create a zap where you say, okay, I want a webhook, that's the generic connection for your API. It will propose you a URL, which I have pasted in this slide, and you can use that custom URL in your API. So let me show you how let me show you how it works. So in here I have a call to my live site, so I'll execute it. It has already created a card within Trello. As you can see here, it added a card saying live demo from our custom API. So to see again how we did it, we have in our solution, we have a Zapier controller where we captured this HTTP call and send it to the Zapier specific URL. So you can send to Zapier in an easy way just by using this custom URL and sending the data from your controller to this URL. So to sum up, it's quite easy to send and receive from automation services and connecting them with your own API using the ASP.NET Webhooks package. I just want to share with you on this URL where all the information about this package can be found. You can also contact me on Twitter by the username Vanaya or our company via Narato BE. Thank you for your attention.